Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. Today, we're going to be delivering as a webinar the content that I was going to deliver at the 2020 Wisconsin Technology Summit at Lambeau Field. Due to COVID-19, that event has been indefinitely postponed, but we still wanted to deliver the content to you. So if you are joining us today, you are going to be able to watch the playback that I'm going to be doing instead here, which is exciting. So today's topic is going to be taking it to the next level, advice for new and experienced entrepreneurs. My name is Paul Hager, and I'm going to introduce myself a little bit here to start out. My official title is the Director of Solutions for the Gordon Flesch Company, which is a new title. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit in my story. I was the owner and CEO of Information Technology Professionals, and we were recently acquired by the Gordon Flesch Company as of March 1st of 2020. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my entrepreneurship journey and some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. So to start out, I was kind of always a young entrepreneur, right? I was that kid that, started trying to mow lawns to make money, and then I would take my baseball cards and I would repackage them and try to sell them to my friends and mark them up. And I was just always trying to figure it out. And I can even remember once trying to start a restaurant out of our kitchen, where the only customers were the other members of my family. And my parents were very confused in my pricing model because they really felt like, since they bought all the food, that I shouldn't be able to charge retail prices for serving them breakfast in their own home using their own product. And so a lot of early lessons in business learned in that way. And as I was growing up and becoming high school aged, and I had a great opportunity to, while going to Neenah High School, also get the chance to work for Neenah High School while being a high school student, being what they called a student computer specialist at the time. So kind of an quasi internship, paid internship role while going to high school there. And so you get into your summers and your friends would be working at McDonald's or in other food service industries. And, I was always trying to figure out a way to do things a little bigger, better, faster. And so what I would tend to do in my summers is just build a couple of websites for people's parents or people that I knew that were small business owners. And, at the time, if you knew HTML and you could build a website in Dreamweaver or you could write some PHP code, you were kind of ahead of the curve. And so I was able to build a couple of websites, charge about $5,000 each, and then I could go do whatever I wanted the rest of the summer. So instead of working a real job. So I've not had a ton of real jobs in my life. I've been very fortunate to be an entrepreneur and a business owner, and that has its own advantages and disadvantages to it. But I was always kind of growing up as that entrepreneurial kid, and I always had that mindset of trying to find what the next thing was and to try to build a business around that. I always found it really interesting to see what people saw value in, and what people were willing to pay for. And that just kind of was a part of me as I was growing up. So as I mentioned, I was a Neenah High School graduate, and I loved technology, but I was really into policy debate. And so I really wanted to be an attorney. And so I thought about that path of being a patent attorney as being the good mix for me. So I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison for my undergrad, and my plan was to continue and go on to law school. I had the opportunity to have a clerkship at a law firm while I was still an undergrad, and it was doing this really cool degree that doesn't exist anymore at the UW called legal studies, where you're able to start taking law school and business school courses out of the graduate school while you were still in your undergrad. And I took some computer science courses and religious studies courses, and I really loved the time that I spent at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. But I had this great opportunity. A friend got me the job as an administrative clerk at a law firm in downtown Madison. And I remember, being in the office one day and overhearing one of the secretaries take a phone call from a client, and she said that they didn't have voicemail. This is early 2000s. Obviously, voicemail existed, but she said they don't do voicemail, but she could take a message. She would type it into an email. That way, the email could be printed and a copy could be put in the client's file. This is before really the big digital boom to law firms, which I ended up being a part of too. But I just thought to myself, as that young kid, again, still a little entrepreneurial in the back of my mind. And I said too loudly once in a meeting, like, why are you doing that? Like, why don't you have voicemail? Voicemail can be stored as a WAV or an MP3 file, and just put that in a digital file. And the explanation I got is, well, they really need the context of the conversation. They would have to pay the legal secretary to actually do dictation on every voicemail, and that would be too burdensome. And so, again, too loudly, I said in front of the partner of that law firm, boy, I feel like there should be a technology that can solve that problem. And so she took me out to dinner one night. I was pretty young, and I thought that was pretty cool. And the partner of this law firm said, hey, if I gave you $250,000, do you think we could go solve that technology problem? So, what are the odds that this kid from Neenah, Wisconsin finds this entrepreneurial owner of a law firm who wants to not just do law, but wants to be entrepreneurial herself? And we ended up creating this company called VoVision, which stands for Voice Division. We embarked on trying to uncover why voice-independent voice recognition was so poor in its initial passive accuracy. And so I put hard my technology hat on. I put law school on hold, and I really dive into, I run the IT of that law firm. So I transitioned into being the IT manager there, get my first true official IT job position. But really what I'm doing is working for VoVision as the chief technology officer there. I'm hiring developers, and we are developing voice recognition training software. All before, this is pre-iPhone, pre-public cloud. So we were racking and stacking 1U servers in a data center in the west side of Madison with the fastest 4-core processors that we could possibly get. And we were grabbing audio files from Cisco phone systems, Unity phone systems, and running them through a transcription engine, and then presenting them back to people in their email with colored confidence scores in the text. So just like if you talk to Siri today or Cortana, you get a color or a Ziggy line under your Google Talk or Google Voice. We were doing that stuff long before any of them were, and that was technology that I helped develop and patent ultimately as well. So I worked on that company for a number of years, 0 employees, all independent contractors, all just programmers developing the technology. And obviously with a lawyer as the other owner, we were developing the intellectual property all along the way. And so we eventually build that technology stack and ultimately sell that company to a subsidiary of Microsoft. And so got to go through my first transaction of my first real business. Along the way. Along that path, then, I found myself, like a lot of entrepreneurs, unemployed, really interested in a lot of technologies, and I had a quick jaunt helping. I was really interested still in that patent space, and so I helped a patent acquisition company on the West Coast very briefly, try to target excess patents that companies might have, help them resell those patents and intellectual property that they might have lying around. But ultimately, while I was at that law firm, I met this company called ITP, or Information Technology Professionals. And they were a small company out of Brookfield, Wisconsin, and they were doing that first digital transformation wave for law firms around digitizing their files using common ERPs, or practice management solutions is what they're called in the legal industry, like Tabs and Practice Master and Time Matters, things like that. And so I met them, and they had done a project for me while I was at that law firm. Met the owner of that business, had a lot of respect for him and how he did business. So I sat down with him. I said, hey, I know law, I know technology, and that's what it seems like you guys do. Maybe we should join forces. And so they made me a partner of that law firm, or not the law firm, partner of that technology firm. And later I would buy out the other partners of that firm and become the sole owner and CEO. And then we grew that company. I had the chance to meet the gentleman, Alex, that is in this movie Free Solo, and what he did in here is just crazy. I remember hearing him give a talk, and then I got a chance to meet him afterwards at an event. And if you haven't seen this movie, it'll freak you out, but it's very good. I think it's on Disney Plus. And he was, the first person to solo El Capitan, which is the largest, single rock face. You can see him here hanging off it. And free soloing, it means you have no ropes, no guidelines. He is just literally crawling up this flat rock face, with no tethers attached to him. And people look at him and say he's crazy. If you watch the movie, I think one of the most interesting storylines to it is the fact that he has a girlfriend who is like, why don't aren't you afraid? And he said, not really. And and what her fear was is don't you care about me? What if you die? How will that impact me? And don't you care about that? And he said he certainly does, but this is what he's here, and this is what he do, is to take these risks. And he was comfortable with that level of risk. And that's really what it takes to be an entrepreneur in a lot of ways. You have to be comfortable, being out on a rock face, doing things that haven't ever been done before sometimes, or doing things that are pretty risky. So that's kind of a little bit about me and my experience and how I started as an entrepreneur and continue to be an entrepreneur. And at some point in today's conversation, I'll talk to you about kind of what I've done in my next phase. But that's enough about me. We're here to talk about how we help your business wherever you may be in your own journey. Let's kind of start and assume that you've gotten off the ground, you have a business, maybe you have some employees, which is ITP was my first company with employees, really. Vovision had none. And I remember this phase really well. The early phase of ITP, we were a small business. There were 4, 5, or 6 of us. We're starting to get the wheels turning. We have a small business. We are making money, and we're providing a valuable service. But you have this real tension. Like you feel like you want to be bigger than where you are, and you want to become a bigger company. And you just see that as the goal, is growth and size. Will give you all these other opportunities, which is true. For us in the early days, it was getting big enough to really offer, things like benefits and healthcare and all those sorts of additional things that you get when you're, just a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And my real learning in those early days, the company at the time, when I joined them had, even though they were providing legal ERP support for these major products, they themselves had taken one of their only 4 people at the time kind of out of billing commission for 6 months to a year for him to develop some software on his own. And that was going to be the boom moment, was to develop their own software. And it really cost them a lot of money, and it never quite landed as fast, and it wasn't returning on their investment as fast as they had hoped. And it was just one of my first lessons is, when you're in this phase, it is about making incremental positive changes. Things like, we would make sure that customers that were signed up on ACH. So as we delivered managed services and IT services to them, we were always cash forward. We had the ACH money coming in the beginning of the month versus trying to chase people down for payment. Those are the types of incremental positive steps that we could do that were really setting us up for success as we tried to move into that space of really becoming a more scaled out company. So it's tough when you're in this phase and you really want to grow. And I just am, I'm a growth minded individual. Don't bring me into your company if you don't want it to grow, because, that's the ride that I really enjoy. And I really believe, especially in the technology space, if you're not a growth oriented company, you're not going to attract the best talent. You're not going to find the best customers, because the best customers want to work with the very best and very most leading edge. You're not going to be that if you are not growing and changing and adapting the technology space. So there's all this kind of like urgency and this desire to continue to grow. But you have to temper that in this phase until you really have your feet under you enough. You have to make incremental positive changes. Then, the other part about it is, I'd kind of talked about that example of early ITP had kind of gone out and gotten unfocused a little bit and tried to develop some software. And the problem with it wasn't that they tried to develop software, it's that they didn't fail fast enough. They didn't see that that was not going to have a good ROI and kill it. And so there's this great quote that I love: never let success get to your head, never let failure get to your heart. So failing fast is really important. And I'm not the first one to say that to you probably, but you need to be okay with failure when you're a small business. You just need to make sure that you're doing failure in a smart way, which I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. You can't have failure be like, Well, I could, incrementally rent the resources that I need access to grow my small business, or I could take out a giant loan and capitalize and buy a whole bunch of stuff and hope that I sell my way out of that, right? That's not failing fast and smart. That's failing fast and not smart. So there are decisions you can make in that early small business stage that if you're not making incremental steps, not making incremental failures and incremental successes that you can build and stack, you can really put yourself behind the eight ball. But that's not to say that you can't take risk. You do. You have to. You have to, and just having a small business is risk, but you have to continue to push the boundaries of what it is that you're offering, likely to remain competitive in the space that you're in. I learned about focus a lot when I was running Vovision because, when you're a software development company and you're making software that no one has made before and you're solving problems that no one solved before in the software world, there is a real distraction. We were getting calls from medical transcription software companies and medical transcriptionists, and we were getting calls from Cisco, the big phone system company, wondering what we were doing. We would get an interesting lead a week from a pretty large or big opportunity that would be very much off the core of, hey, we were just trying to build the best learning and correction mechanism for voicemail. At one point I remember the Canadian court system coming up because in Canada, they did record all court hearings. They didn't have stenographers, they just recorded them. But then when they wanted text transcripts of what was going on at trials in Canada, they needed that transcript. And using a computer augmented voice transcription would save them a significant amount of time and money. And so there's all these opportunities. And then you start to daydream about getting bigger and going boom really fast off of one customer. And while that feels like good risk, the fail fast part of that would say it's not a smart failing fast. It could be a dumb one because if you lack that focus, you go down a path that doesn't work. If you're not able to recover, you can put yourself in a bad place. So you need to focus what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're offering. And you need to be really maniacal about what is it that you do best and what can you do that's better than everybody else, and really try to stay in that lane. But there's a tension there between staying in your lane and being entrepreneurial and trying new things, which is why you need to kind of do my learning too, which is to fail fast as well. So starve your distraction and feed your focus. The other thing that really helped me as I was growing ITP was having a peer group and a peer network, having mentors. I've always had mentors in each of my businesses, and those are people that I looked up to and respected a lot and gave me a lot of good advice, because it is all on your shoulders sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, but you also need to leverage your network and leverage your people. And you need to make sure that while you spend time focusing on delivering whatever your widget or customer service is to your end customers, that you as the entrepreneur take time to work on the business and not just in the business. And this gets skipped a lot, and it's very easy to just get caught up in it. And I was very blessed among my years here at ITP in particular to have such good staff members and such good leaders working with me that I would have leaders say to me, Paul, I think it's just one of those times that you need to leave the office for a while and just go think great thoughts. When you come back and you really shake things up is when we really move forward. Those are the inflection points that have changed the business. And that was taking time in my peer groups and in my travels to focus on working on the business and not just in it. As we know, there's just some data about small businesses that over 99% of America's 28.7 million firms in the world are small businesses. Most of what we have, not in the world, in America, most of the American economy really derives from small businesses. The vast majority, or 88% of employer firms, have fewer than 20 employees, and nearly 40% of all enterprises have under $100,000 in revenue. Under $100,000 in revenue. When I started ITP, almost 10 years ago, they were at 300,000 in revenue, which is for 3 or 4 people, meets the standard, right? They were well under 20 people, but they were driving, revenue that feels small in comparison to big companies, but really was pretty decent. And when I sold ITP, we were at 10 million in revenue with 40 people. So, that journey wasn't just a rocket ship or a hockey stick. You do, unfortunately, have phases where you can plateau, and that's when I met ITP. They had really plateaued in that early couple $100,000 a year in revenue mark. And so really needed to change the game. And that's what I saw right away was the growth of the managed service industry, the change in a shift away from just time and materials work in the computer and IT space to higher value recurring services, outsourcing your entire IT and picking a real trusted partner. And so that's what we hit the ground running and really focused on. So you want to be a mountain, right? You don't want to be plateauing. Maybe you're listening to this today and you are a small business owner that is at this plateau, and you don't want that. You want to grow, and you want to grow exponentially. And like I said, I'm very growth minded, and I think that's a good idea for most businesses to be. And you would think that would be good enough, right? That all you would need to do is grow. But the reality is that on average, over 70% of small businesses will fail within the first 10 years. In fact, a large percentage of them fail in year one. But the long-term span and the lifespan, we don't have these mega brands anymore, right? It is just as likely that you're going to have the same success as last year as maybe you get completely wiped out by a competitor that's able to disrupt the industry. You know, we've seen how quickly Airbnb and Uber and just new business models can come in and just change the game for an entire industry. And that definitely is what impacts some of this data around the ability for a company to continue to grow and sustain that growth. And even while you grow, your decisions get bigger and more challenging, and the numbers get larger, and you can make mistakes that even have a larger impact. So why don't businesses climb? Why don't they climb that mountain just like Free Solo? Why aren't we able to get up the rock face? An analysis from a company called CB Insights found the 20 primary reasons why startups fail, and I bolded a few of them. The number one is that there just wasn't a need for the business that you have. The other one is that you ran out of cash. The other is that you had the wrong team members. Those are the top three. And then way at the bottom, one that their research didn't highlight, but I wanted to highlight for everybody here today, people that didn't use their network. The great thing about the state of Wisconsin and being in the technology space in the state of Wisconsin, I live out of Madison now, but to have grown up in the Fox Valley area and obviously spent some time working in the Milwaukee area, we talk about Madison is a little big town, as Milwaukee is a little big town, as the Valley is really a small town market. That's true, but it's true in a really great way, which is we have these great businesses and great companies. We have global brands within the state of Wisconsin, but we also have a really vibrant small business community. And we want to help each other, and Wisconsin businesses want to work with other Wisconsin businesses. I see that all the time, every day. So you have to use that network. And you need to remember to not make decisions that are short-sighted, and you need to think long-term about what brand and reputation your business wants to leave and what you personally want to have as your brand, your name, because in these communities, just as good as you can build yourself a really good name, you can build yourself a name for not having quality, and that'll be a problem in our communities for sure. To jump back to the top, no market need. Obviously, if you're going to start a business, there better be a demand for what it is that you have to offer. And the demand must be so good that somebody is willing to pay you not just enough for it, but enough plus margin for you to grow a growing and healthy and vibrant business that supports and engages your employees and staff in really great ways. So there needs to absolutely be a validated market need for what it is that you have to offer. That can't be based on you asking just your friends and family whether it's a good idea. It has to be the actual market telling you that there is a need for what it is that you have to offer. The next one is the run out of cash. I talked about in early ITP days, we switched to requiring ACH, and that was largely derived out of something like this. You have to have a cash forward cash flow when you are a small business. You will not be able to survive bumps. We're going through right now, this webinar is a webinar instead of it being in person because we've had a pandemic come out of nowhere. If you don't have enough cash on hand to survive some of those bumps, you will definitely be in one of these businesses that is going out of business, unfortunately. So you need to always look at things, even if it's a little bit harder, even if it's a little harder to sell something. a project where the customer's going to have to pay 50% down and 50% on completion, and they kind of grumble and look at you like you're a small business and why are you making me pay so much up front? You got to stick to your guns. You got to walk away from stuff because it needs to be cash forward, and you need to make sure that you're taken care of. And a lot of problems come out of lacking capital, and a lot of problems are solved by having good capital. But you can't let that solve every problem either. Next one is the wrong team. And here I've just been terribly blessed in my life to have met with and worked with just some really amazing people. Even today, as I sit now as ITP as a part of the Gordon Flesch company, very recently here, I still have the very first employee that I ever hired as a part of ITP 10 years ago in the team and as a part of the transition team and in the leadership role with me. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. These are the right people on the right seats in the bus, and they just completely change the game as you're a growing company. Now, that doesn't mean that when you're a small business that you should take all of your money and just hire the coolest guy that you have met that's got all the credentials and way more experience than you. And hey, all he wants is 10% of your company and a 6-figure salary, even though that's more than you're making at this point, but he's going to make it go boom, and he or she super promises that it's going to be good. I see that all the time, and I've told and provided mentorship to a number of small businesses where I just had to be very honest and said, you're just not there. You can't afford them. I know it feels like that's your way out, but your way out is to put your head down and continue to work. And the right people at the right price point. And there are creative ways to compensate people in good ways in early businesses that align them to where the growth of the organization needs to be. But you need to have the right team. And the right team doesn't mean the most expensive team. The right team means the right people that are bought into your vision. And it's your vision that you're going to need to sell to them. It's interesting that those things, the wrong team and cash, come way before just being outcompeted, that there's somebody just better than you, right? So much of this are things that you can control. You can control whether you started a business that ever even had a market need. And you can figure out how to start a business smartly and be cash forward if you're patient. And you can make sure that you hire the right team. If you do those things, you have an infinitely better chance of finding success and getting over the plateau and climbing the mountain. So again, I kind of talked about what I did when I joined ITP, right? I shifted into a managed service, recurring service model where money was coming in the door every way. I solved the cash problem. I brought in the right team. I found the right people and added the right people to the mix. And again, it wasn't the most expensive people, but it was the right people at the right time. And I leveraged my network as that young small business, taking the people that I knew and that I had met through my experience at the law firm and through my experiences with VoVision early on, and leverage that network to find, one more customer and 2 more customers and 5 more customers. So I took those things, and I think that's where I was able to find that early success. So then as you kind of continue to grow and you get to this kind of midpoint in your business where you're having some success, maybe you've crossed one of the plateaus, maybe you're just getting off that plateau. I feel like there are weird plateaus at about 20 employees and about 30 and about 50. I don't know what it is about those, but they're just weird kind of plateaus of a small business that you tend to hit. And then you really, to take it to the next level, you need to become a data-driven company. And to me, success without data is just another word for luck. You have to run a data-driven business. And if that means that you're not great at reading financials, you better have somebody on your team who is. And you better learn what KPIs, what key performance indicators or metrics you do understand that are tied directly to the success of your business, and that you watch those knobs. So that now you're not just guessing at whether that one next thing will fail fast or do well, but you're able to make informed decisions about what your next step should be. And after you do that, you're able to go back and look at those knobs and say, did it improve the bottom line? Did it drive EBITDA to the bottom? Did it improve customer satisfaction? You need to start to get into the data. And the great news is with technology today, this is easier and easier. Power BI is a part of the Office 365 suite. There's a ton of data and visualization companies out there now, and there are a lot of them that are software as a service low cost, and a part of the productivity suites you may already be using. And you just need to start feeding them data. And absolutely, it is a good investment if you are an entrepreneur in a small business and you're in a plateau to just better understand the data that drives your business so that you can start playing with, failing fast, taking some risk, and watching where those knobs turn on what it can do for your business. So as you grow, right, as maybe you feel like you're nearing a summit or you've kept your growth going over a number of years. For us, we spent 5 years consecutively on Inc. 5000's fastest growing companies, which is something that less than 4% of people that ever get on the Inc. Listing ever achieve. But you need to remind people why they're on that journey. Sometimes when you are like me and you want growth so badly and you make that the focus of the business, you absolutely also have to match that, your zeal for it. You have to get your whole culture of your business to follow it along with you. And so one of the things that I found in the most successful campaign we ever ran internally was a James Bond theme that we run. We still do this today, and I brought this culture actually into the Gordon Flesch organization as well, where we run every 6 months, we run a theme within the office around a movie or a popular TV show. And our first one was the James Bond theme. Lots of great Bond movies, and we did little quizzes and things like that. But what we really did was we as a management team sat down and thought of missions for everybody in the organization. So we made little mini missions for everybody, and then we had a list of missions that you could complete. And every time you completed a mission, not only would we post that in our internal Teams or Slack channel, but you would get another entry to win an opportunity for a trip. So it was micro recognition. It was one of your missions was to go sit with a teammate that does something completely different than you in the organization and learn something about their job that you didn't know. So all of this was being done to align people to doing little steps, little micro recognitions, little micro goals that all added up into the big goal, what we really needed to have get achieved, which was to continue to make growth happen. And so we've done that with Harry Potter, and we've done it with Game of Thrones, and it's really been fun over the years to do it. And it's a mixture of marketing and internal culture, but it's become a part of our DNA that there's always something like this going on, that even while it's a stressful day because we're asking for growth and we're demanding sales numbers and our KPIs around customer service delivery, that we're also having a little bit of fun along the way because it can be a grind. So obviously, some news here in March. As of March 1st, I took ITP, and much like I took Bovision and was able to sell it, I ultimately did sell information technology professionals to the Gordon Flesch company. And I'm staying on with this venture, and I'm really excited about this next phase for me in being a part of a really successful, larger organization that's also family owned. The Flesch family has a really great vision for making solid and strategic investments. It's a third generation business, and the third generation of the Flesch family, all the generations obviously have been very successful. This third generation is really making its mark by doing acquisitions. I think we are their third acquisition in the last 6 months. And you may know Gordon Flesch is the traditional copier and print company, but really they're a digital technology and platform company. And while they understand that part of that digitization process involves printers and scanners and multifunctions and things like that, they've also been really smart. They made investments in AI and machine learning, in enterprise content management, and in the managed IT space and the digital transformation space with a company like ITP. And so, that's the vision, right? Everybody has a small business for different reasons. It may be just what you really enjoy doing, and you're going to do it from the start to when you want to retire, and you're smart about your growth, and you're okay with a plateau, but it's profitable and it's good, and that's fine. There are others of you that may have a business that you want to grow and make big and have a huge impact. And then there's folks like me that I want to take care and create good jobs and great job opportunities for families here in Wisconsin. But ultimately, for myself and for my family, you're building a business to build an asset. And that asset is something that you need to decide when it's the right time to take that asset and convert it into something else. So and that's different for everybody, and their goals are different. I was just very fortunate to find an organization that had so many synergies and really saw the value that we would bring to the combined organization, and in my value that I'd be able to drive and have an impact in a larger organization. So, to each, have your goal and make that really clear. Everyone in the ITP organization knew that selling the company someday was a part of my goal and my vision. So when that day came, it was certainly surprising to people, but less surprising because they knew I was an entrepreneur, and that was part of the vision for what it is. And now we have this fantastic opportunity, this great technology platform to be able to take to the broader the access to 7 states that Gordon Flesch has, and really continue to grow and expand the business. So that was my journey, and this is just my journey into after having 2 companies and buying one and selling one that's just really was intellectual property, and selling one that had people and staff, and a merger to do afterwards. And really just been very lucky to have great people and to have great opportunities kind of put in front of me along the way. So I really wish I could have been there in person to share some of my stories and answer questions about for your business, where you are today. Like I've said before, Wisconsin is just a phenomenal place to have a technology-focused company. There is so many interesting things going on in tech within our university system, the University of Wisconsin system, which is phenomenal. You have Titletown and that whole area, an incubator. You have Starting Block in Madison. You have Milwaukee with a conduit to Chicago and the tech scene that's available there as well. Microsoft has a presence here. Google has a presence here. There really is exciting things that go on in the state. And it's really exciting, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of this business and this technology community. So I wish I could have been able to present this to people in person, but please do reach out on LinkedIn, through our blog and social channels. If there's something that we can do to help your business grow, if there's something that I can do, I've been fortunate enough to provide some mentorship advice to other people around the United States, but happy to help people right here in Wisconsin as well, and be a mentor. Like I've had so many great mentors over my career that have helped me build and grow my business as well. So thank you for watching this recording and taking some time out of your day. Hopefully we see you at another Wisconsin Technology Council event.